Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Mismapasion, and the first international break of the year has descended upon the women's game. But before the interlude brought club football to a screeching halt, the likes of the WSL left us with an excellent weekend of games to keep us satisfied until the next game week, and we will take a look at them all right here, right now. The game week offered very little in the way of surprise results as a whole throughout the week, but there were some very good matchups, and this was best exemplified in Manchester United's home win over Crystal Palace, as we pretty much knew what was going to happen in this game, despite Palace being somewhat good for their money on the day. The Red Devils were quick to get off the mark and punish the Eagles, who were debuting the new goalie Mahasari, who must have felt the butterflies in her legs as well as her stomach, as an errant pass went directly from Clinton, who linked up with Miyazawa to assist Sterling's opener to set up a good start to the game for the home team. United were in their stride for large swathes of the first half and could have doubled their lead had Sterling not hit the post. That shot would soon be regretted, as Palace would find their equalizer after a quick counter that Gale finished off. Palace were as plucky as ever and, as mentioned earlier, were good for their money, especially at the back, where the defenders were regularly up to the task to withhold United, especially because their goalkeeper was honestly not in this game. This was well exemplified by Sterling's second goal, where she went round the keeper with minimal fuss and tucked the ball into the back of the net to restore the lead for the Red Devils. United would finish off the struggling visitors with a leaping header from Grace Clinton to seal all 3 points to maintain their pressure on Chelsea, whilst Crystal Palace had an away day to forget and their keeper Mahasadi with a debut to forget herself after that putrid performance. From Manchester to London, and it was North London derby time with Arsenal hosting Spurs at the Emirates, where it was one-way traffic for the home team. Improving on their beating last time, Spurs kept the pace with Arsenal for about the first 15 minutes before things fell apart spectacularly for the Little Whites, as not one but two misplaced passes by the away side yielded dividends on one occasion, with Alessia Russo opening the scoring for the first error, but Caitlin Ford just narrowly failing to make good on the second error to save the away team a few blushes early on in the first half. Arsenal were far better in this entire game, and after going close on a few occasions courtesy of Russo and Ford, Caldente would be the one who found the Gunners second after a second bite of the cherry. The home side's dominance remained in the second half as they came bearing down easily, and despite the efforts of Spurs goalie Lisa Popp, who was definitely the away side's best player, Arsenal would not be denied, as Monham's deflected shot would find its way into the net to get Arsenal's third before Russo would double her tally for the game not too long after with a vicious effort to put the game to bed. Spurs' misery was ultimately compounded by what was coined as a star-spangled banger from none other than Emily Fox, who put the icing on the cake of a 5-star performance from the Gunners, who completed the double over their local rivals in a game that exemplified Arsenal at their very, very best. Staying in London but heading westwards, where champions Chelsea welcomed Everton in an encounter for the ages which honestly exceeded all expectations. What should have been an Everton Mullering turned into an eventful encounter that Chelsea really struggled to take control of. The Toffees were sticky as ever in the first half as they kept the Blues quiet for large parts of the game as a whole, and their rigidity eventually paid dividends early on in the second half as Kelly Gago continued to impress for her new club with a great goal from an extremely tight angle with a first-time shot to open the scoring and stun the home side. Gago nearly got the double, but Hampton would come to the rescue before Ramirez would level over Chelsea just 10 minutes after the opener with an equally difficult shot of her own to give the Blues some hope. Chelsea eventually grew into the game as the minutes ticked on, and Everton were holding firm to try and just get something from the game, as they did deserve to do so. And that would have been the case had it not been for some last-minute heartbreak, courtesy of Lauren James, who golazzoed home to grant all 3 points to the champions to keep their unbeaten run alive just a little bit longer against a disheveled Everton, who went toe-to-toe and came close to rattling the Blues on this occasion, but it was just not meant to be. Guess what? We're still in London, where it seemed most of the entertaining games of the week came from, with this time round seeing West Ham welcoming out-of-form Brighton to the fray, and in a bid to rescue their poor form, Brighton started the game well and nearly went ahead early on, but West Ham were spared the humiliation. Speaking of which, the Hammers would respond in kind, with Asai wreaking havoc as usual, as her cross into the box was met by Wakey, whose header was blocked, but the deflected ball fell into the waiting legs of Martinez, who guided the ball into the unguarded net to give the home side the lead. It would not be enjoyed for too long though, as Brighton would soon draw things level just a few minutes later, with recent England return being Nikita Paris bringing things level into yet another empty net. the goalkeepers obviously weren't having good starts to the game. Brighton's bright, no pun intended, start continued for a while longer and really should have gone ahead on more than one occasion had Shemek not been on form in the Hammers' net. The same could not be said for Brighton's goalie Loke, who was nearly humiliated towards the end of the first half but was spared the blushes as Pavi could not capitalize on the error that was standing right in front of her face. Ultimately, it would not matter much for the Hammers as their quality was on show for everyone to see, and Brighton felt the full force of it, with Uweki finally not only getting her goal but restoring the lead for the home side with an incredible effort before Asayi would put away a penalty just 3 minutes later to secure all 3 points for West Ham to add on to the already heaping pile of misery that Brighton continued to wallow in. The penultimate game of the week made a fool out of me, as just when I thought Aston Villa were on their way, they get clobbered by relegation favourites Leicester City. If you haven't followed me for a while now, then you will know how much faith I've put in Aston Villa as a team, as they are that well built on paper, but have never ever made good on their promise, and this game really proved my frustrations true. Villa were not lost for chances and should have really competed far better than they did in this game, especially up front, but Leicester City wanted this far more, as the Foxes were far sharper in front of goal, as they picked apart Aston Villa to find their opener through Cayman, before again Cayman would come to haunt the visiting side again with a stunning, outrageous volley that was smashed into top bins that honestly mesmerized me. You should have heard me just scream. I was not expecting it. It was just that fantastic. Leicester would put the icing on the cake with the headed effort from Tivo not too long after Cayman's stunner to put the game to bed, and maybe it's just me, but the bell seems to be tolling more and more louder for Aston Villa as Leicester's survival charge kicked up yet another notch, much to the dismay of fellow relegation candidates Aston Villa. And finally, say it quietly, but I think Man City are back, y'all. I saw some dead people in this game, and earlier on in this video I spoke about Mullering, and it's an exaggeration to say that this is exactly what Man City did to Liverpool. The good run of form from the Reds came to a screeching halt as City put them to the sword in what is a 90 minutes plus extra time, of course, of ruthless aggression from the citizens. Buddy Shaw returned to form with the first half brace that was as undeniable as you'd expect from the league's best marksman. Alba, Fujino and Yuya Hasagawa had many chances of their own to add to the scoreline, but were unfortunate, but not as unfortunate as Liverpool were, as 2 opportunities to score into an empty net were denied, as the likes of Yamashita and Kanak stood firm at the back. The Reds' misery was compounded into the second half, as after a saved effort from Midama was the warning shot that allowed for Jill Royd and league debutant Gracie Pryor to put the game to bed, with Pryor's goal in particular being a Trivela from downtown to put the bow on what is quite frankly an incredibly dominant performance that is reminiscent of City's earlier dominance in the season that could prove useful as the season rolls on, with special mention going out to Yamashita, who was absolutely imperious in between the sticks and gave Liverpool absolutely nothing throughout the entire proceedings. And with game week 14 all but wrapped up, the current table stands as so, with no movement amongst the top 4 but Leicester City making the all-important leap out of the relegation zone to go 2 points clear of Aston Villa, who now reside where the Foxes once were. And with that being said, this is the end of the video. What are your thoughts on the game week just gone by, and do you think that anyone will stop Chelsea? Spoiler alert, there's no one, but anyway, let me know your thoughts on that and anything else you might want to discuss in the comments section below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. I do apologize for releasing this video so late, as I was under the weather a little bit, and I will see you in the next one.